Have you ever wondered what might happen if the future Queen of Spain made a decision so unexpected that it left everyone inside the palace speechless? Imagine a moment when tradition collided with personal conviction, forcing one young royal to choose between obedience and doing what she believed was right. Today's story is entirely fictional, inspired by public figures, and created purely for entertainment. It does not describe real events or real private conversations. Now, let's begin. The halls of the royal palace had always been places where tradition spoke louder than emotion. Every schedule was planned weeks in advance. Every appearance carefully rehearsed. Every public statement reviewed countless times before reaching the outside world. Princess Leonor had grown up understanding those rules better than anyone. Since childhood, she had been taught that every smile carried meaning. Every handshake represented Spain. Every decision reflected not only herself but the crown she would someday inherit. For years she accepted those expectations without complaint. She attended ceremonies, military training, official receptions, national celebrations. She listened more than she spoke. She learned more than she questioned. Inside the palace, many believed they understood exactly who she was. Disciplined, respectful, reliable, predictable, but sometimes the strongest people carry thoughts no one else notices. And one quiet morning, everything changed. It began with an important meeting involving senior palace advisors. King Felipe sat at the head of the long conference table. Around him were officials responsible for organizing one of the monarchy's largest upcoming public engagements. The event would attract international attention. Every detail mattered. As usual, Leonor had been invited to listen. Future monarchs were expected to observe these discussions carefully. Most expected her to remain silent. Instead, she surprised everyone. As plans were finalized, Leonor calmly raised her hand. The room became unusually quiet. She rarely interrupted. King Felipe nodded. "You have something to add?" Leonor looked around the room before answering. "I think we're preparing the perfect ceremony." Several advisors smiled. Then she continued, "But I'm not sure we're preparing the right message." The smiles disappeared. The silence became heavier. No one expected that response. One advisor politely asked what she meant. Leonor spoke carefully. "We keep discussing protocol. We keep discussing appearances. But have we asked what people actually need to hear?" The room froze. No one interrupted. King Felipe watched quietly. Another official explained that tradition existed for a reason. Leonor agreed. It does. But traditions survive because they adapt. Not because they refuse to change. Those words echoed across the room. Some advisors exchanged nervous glances. Others avoided eye contact altogether. No one expected the princess to challenge the conversation so openly. Not aggressively, not emotionally, simply honestly. The meeting ended earlier than expected. Afterward, palace staff filled the corridors with whispers. What happened? Did Leonor really question the plan? Was the king upset? Rumors spread quickly. Yet inside his private office, King Felipe remained thoughtful rather than angry. He asked Leonor to join him. She entered quietly. Neither spoke immediately. Finally, the king smiled slightly. "You surprised everyone today." Leonor nodded. "I know. Were you trying to?" "No, I was trying to be honest." Felipe leaned back in his chair. "When I was your age, honesty wasn't always welcomed." Leonor looked toward the palace gardens. "Maybe that's why people stop listening." The king considered her words carefully. "You believe things should change. I believe people deserve sincerity." There was no argument, only reflection. Outside the palace, preparations for the ceremony continued. Inside, discussions became more complicated. Some advisors believed Leonor had crossed an invisible line. Others quietly admitted she had raised questions worth considering. The palace found itself divided. Not by conflict, but by perspective. Days later another planning session was held. This time Leonor remained silent. She listened patiently. When everyone finished, King Felipe surprised the room. "I've been thinking about what Leonor said." Every advisor turned toward him. "I believe she's right." Shock spread instantly. He continued, "Our responsibility isn't only preserving tradition. It's preserving trust. And trust begins when people believe we're listening." The room became completely silent. The ceremony was redesigned, not dramatically, but meaningfully. Instead of focusing entirely on royal protocol, organizers included conversations with young volunteers, students, healthcare workers, and community leaders. The event would still respect tradition, but it would also highlight ordinary citizens. When the announcement became public, reactions were overwhelmingly positive. Many praised the fresh approach. Others appreciated seeing younger voices represented. Some journalists wondered where the idea had originated. The palace offered no explanation. Inside the royal household, however, everyone knew. It had started with one unexpected conversation. Weeks later, Leonor visited a youth leadership program. Instead of standing behind a podium, she chose to sit in a circle with students. No prepared speeches, no formal distance, just conversation. One teenager asked, "Are you ever afraid of disappointing people?" The room became quiet. Leonor smiled thoughtfully. "I think everyone worries about that. But leadership isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about making choices you can stand behind." The answer spread widely. Many admired its simplicity. Others felt it reflected maturity beyond her years. Back at the palace, King Felipe watched recordings of the visit. One advisor entered. "Public approval has increased." Felipe nodded. "I wasn't thinking about approval." The advisor looked confused. "I was thinking about confidence. She's finding her own voice." There was pride in his expression. Not because Leonor always agreed with palace traditions, but because she understood why they existed while also imagining how they could evolve. As months passed, palace culture slowly shifted. Junior staff members found themselves invited into conversations more often. Younger advisors received greater responsibility. Public events became slightly less formal, more personal, more accessible. The changes were subtle, yet noticeable. Many people outside the palace simply assumed the monarchy was naturally evolving. Few realized how one quiet conversation had started everything. One evening, Leonor and Felipe walked through the palace gardens after sunset. Neither wore formal attire. For a brief moment, they were simply father and daughter. Felipe finally broke the silence. "When you spoke during that meeting, I wasn't sure what would happen." Leonor laughed softly. "Neither was I." He smiled. "You reminded me of something important." She looked toward him. "What's that?" "That courage doesn't always sound loud. Sometimes it sounds respectful, but impossible to ignore." Leonor smiled quietly. "I learned that from you." The king looked surprised. "I always thought courage meant protecting tradition." Leonor answered gently. "Sometimes protecting tradition means helping it grow." The words stayed with him. Long after the conversation ended. Long after the palace lights dimmed. Because every generation inherits more than titles. They inherit responsibility. And every generation must decide what deserves to remain unchanged. And what deserves the courage to become something better. Perhaps that was the lesson hidden beneath the palace walls all along. Not that disagreement weakens a family, but that respectful honesty can strengthen it. Not that leadership means having every answer, but that true leaders are willing to ask better questions. If this fictional story reminds us of anything, it's that real strength often appears in quiet moments rather than dramatic ones. The future isn't shaped only by those who protect history. Sometimes it's shaped by those brave enough to respectfully challenge it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this fictional royal story inspired by public figures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let us know in the comments, if you were in Princess Leonor's position, would you have spoken up, or remained silent? Until next time, thanks for watching.